My name is Alexandra. I'm 27 years old, and I just discovered the most heartbreaking betrayal of my life. Last week, my mother posted photos on Facebook of our entire family at Disney World, smiling and laughing together. The problem? I wasn't there. Just 3 weeks ago, they told me they couldn't afford our annual family vacation due to unexpected expenses. Now I'm staring at pictures of my parents, my brother Jake, and my sister Emma having the time of their lives without me. Before we dive into this shocking story of family deception and stolen inheritance, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's experienced family betrayal? Hit that like button if you believe family should always have your back, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that will leave you speechless. Trust me, what happens next in my story will make you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. 3 weeks before that devastating Facebook post, I sat across from my parents in their living room, excited to discuss our annual family vacation plans. Every year since I was 5, we'd taken a trip together, and it was the highlight of my summer. This year, I had even saved up extra money to splurge on nicer accommodations. But the moment I brought up the topic, I noticed my mother Grace shift uncomfortably in her seat, exchanging a strange look with my father Robert. "Alexandra, sweetheart," my mother began, her voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk to you about something difficult." She reached for a tissue from the box on the coffee table, dabbing at her eyes. "Your father and I have been going through some unexpected financial hardships. The house needs major repairs, his medical bills from the surgery last year are still coming in, and with the economy the way it is." She trailed off, unable to finish. My father pulled out a folder from the side table, spreading what appeared to be bank statements and bills across the coffee table. "Look, Alex," he said, using my childhood nickname, "I know how much these trips mean to all of us, but the numbers just don't add up this year. We're barely keeping our heads above water." The papers showed overdraft notices, past due bills, and a mortgage statement with a frighteningly high number circled in red. My heart sank, but I immediately wanted to help. "Mom, Dad, why didn't you tell me sooner? I have savings, I can contribute. We can make this work if we all chip in." I pulled out my phone to check my bank balance, already calculating how much I could spare. "Absolutely not," my father said firmly, his hand coming down on the table. "You're 27 years old, Alexandra. You should be saving for your own future, not bailing out your parents. We've already discussed this with Jake and Emma. They understand. This is just a temporary setback." My mother nodded, wiping away more tears. "We'll make it up to you kids next year, I promise. Maybe we'll even do something extra special when things turn around." She reached over and squeezed my hand, her wedding ring catching the light from the lamp beside her. I thought back to all our previous vacations together. The trip to Yellowstone when I was 12, where Jake got too close to a bison and we all screamed. The cruise to Alaska for my parents' 25th anniversary. The week in Hawaii where Emma learned to surf and wouldn't stop talking about it for months. These trips weren't just vacations, they were the glue that held our family together. "Are you sure there's nothing I can do?" I asked one more time, looking between their faces. They both seemed so defeated, so worn down by their financial struggles. It broke my heart to see them this way. "The best thing you can do is focus on your own life," my mother said softly. "Your job is going well, you're finally in a stable place. Don't let our problems become yours." She stood up, effectively ending the conversation, and began gathering the financial papers back into the folder. I left their house that evening feeling hollow. On the drive home, I called my brother Jake, who answered on the third ring. "Yeah, they told me yesterday," he said, sounding distracted. "It sucks, but what can you do? Maybe we can all do something smaller, like a weekend camping trip or something." Emma texted me later that night. "Mom called crying about vacation. So sad. Maybe we can plan something just the three of us." I responded that it was a nice idea, but my heart wasn't in it. Family vacation meant all of us together. The next morning, I went into work and found my boss Sandra in the break room. "Hey, I need to cancel my vacation request for July," I told her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Family plans fell through." "Oh no, that's too bad," she said, looking genuinely concerned. You've been talking about this trip for months. Is everything okay? Just some financial stuff with my parents, I explained, pouring myself a cup of coffee. We'll reschedule eventually. I didn't want to go into details, feeling protective of my parents' privacy. Over the next few days, I threw myself into a new project. If I couldn't use my vacation time for the trip, I decided I'd use it to help my parents around the house. I made a list of all the repairs my father had mentioned and started researching contractors and costs. Maybe if I handled some of the smaller fixes myself, it would free up money for them to catch up on other bills. I even went to the hardware store and bought paint for their living room, which my mother had been wanting to refresh for years. I figured if we couldn't make new memories on vacation, at least I could help make their daily living space more pleasant. I scheduled the time off anyway, planning to surprise them with the home improvements. My colleague Melissa noticed me browsing paint samples at my desk during lunch. "Redecorating?" she asked, peering over my shoulder. "Just helping my parents out," I said, showing her the color swatches. Since we're not doing our family vacation this year, I figured I'd use the time to help them with some house projects. "That's really sweet of you," she said. "Not many kids your age would give up vacation time to help their parents like that. They're lucky to have you." I smiled at the compliment, but something nagged at me. In all the years I'd known my parents, they'd never been ones to let financial problems stop them from family time. They'd always found a way, even if it meant camping in the backyard or having a staycation exploring local attractions. The complete cancellation felt off somehow, but I pushed the feeling away. They were probably just embarrassed about their situation and didn't want to burden us kids with a scaled-down vacation. As the week went on, I found myself scrolling through photos from our past trips on my phone during quiet moments. There we all were at the Grand Canyon, squinting in the bright sun. At Niagara Falls, getting soaked by the mist. At countless restaurants and hotels, always together, always smiling. I couldn't remember a summer without our family vacation. The empty space in my calendar where the trip should have been felt like a missing tooth, constantly drawing my attention. Little did I know that while I was planning paint colors and home repairs, my family was planning something else entirely. The betrayal that was coming would shatter not just my summer plans, but my entire understanding of who my family really was. 1 week later, I was deep in a spreadsheet at work, analyzing quarterly projections, when my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. I almost ignored it, but the preview caught my eye. Grace Miller added 37 new photos to the album Family Vacation 2024. My heart stopped. It had to be old photos, maybe from a previous year that she was just now uploading. My mother was notorious for being behind on social media. I clicked on the notification and my blood ran cold. The first photo showed my entire family standing in front of Cinderella's castle at Disney World. The timestamp read 2 hours ago. My mother, father, Jake, and Emma were all wearing matching Mickey Mouse ears and grinning at the camera. The caption read, "Best family vacation ever. So blessed to share this magical moment with our loved ones." My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. This couldn't be real. There had to be some explanation. Maybe it was a day trip? But as I scrolled through more photos, the truth became undeniable. Pictures at the hotel pool. Breakfast at the resort. Multiple days' worth of outfits. They hadn't just gone without me, they'd been there for days. "Alexandra, are you okay?" Melissa's voice broke through my shock. She was standing beside my desk, looking concerned. "You just went completely pale." I couldn't form words. I just held up my phone, showing her the photos. She squinted at the screen, then her eyes widened. "Wait, isn't that your family? I thought you said the vacation was canceled because of money problems." "That's what they told me," I managed to whisper. My throat felt like it was closing up. Melissa took the phone from my trembling hands, scrolling through more photos. "Alex, they're staying at the Grand Floridian. That's like $700 a night. These park hopper passes, the character dinners. This trip probably cost them at least $10,000. The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of my desk to steady myself. "I need to call Jake," I said, reaching for my phone. I dialed his number with shaking fingers. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then went to voicemail. I tried again. This time, it went straight to voicemail, meaning he'd declined my call. I texted him frantically, "Jake, what's going on? Why are you all in Disney without me?" The message showed as delivered, then read, but no response came. Next, I tried Emma. She answered on the second ring, and I could hear the sounds of the park in the background. "Oh my God, Alex," she said, her voice high and nervous. "I thought you knew. Mom said you decided not to come because of work." "What?" I practically shouted, causing several coworkers to look over. "Emma, they told me the trip was canceled because of money problems. Mom was crying about it." There was a long pause. I could hear muffled voices in the background, like Emma was covering the phone. I have to go," she said quickly. "We're about to get on Space Mountain. I'll call you later, okay?" "Emma, wait." But she'd already hung up. I sat there in stunned silence, my mind racing to make sense of what was happening. Then another terrible thought occurred to me. I opened my email and searched for the airline confirmation from months ago when I'd helped my mother book the flights because she was having trouble with the website. There they were, 5 tickets to Orlando, purchased with her credit card. 5. Not 4. My ticket was there in my name, for the same flights they were clearly on, which meant they hadn't forgotten to invite me or made new plans. They had deliberately excluded me from the original reservation. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "We need to talk when we get back." This isn't what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet office. What else could it possibly look like when your entire family secretly goes on vacation without you after lying to your face about it? Melissa had returned to her desk, but kept shooting me worried glances. My supervisor Sandra walked by and stopped when she saw my face. "Alexandra? Is everything all right?" I need to leave," I said, already packing up my things. "Family emergency." "Of course," she said, her brow furrowed with concern. "Take all the time you need." I barely remembered the drive home. My mind kept replaying that conversation with my parents, analyzing every word, every look between them. How long had they been planning this? How had they coordinated keeping it secret from me? When I got to my apartment, I threw my keys on the counter and sank onto my couch. I pulled up Facebook again, torturing myself with the photos. There was one of them at what looked like an expensive restaurant, raising glasses and a toast. Jake was wearing a new Hawaiian shirt I'd never seen before. Emma had gotten her hair braided with colorful beads. My parents looked relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. The comments on the photos made me feel even worse. My Aunt Linda had written, "So wonderful to see the whole family together." My parents' neighbor commented, "You guys deserve this vacation. Enjoy every moment." Did everyone know except me? Or did they all think I was there somewhere, just not in the photos? I called my mother's phone. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What could I even say? I tried my father again, same result. They were clearly avoiding me now. As the afternoon wore on, more photos appeared. Videos of them on rides. Pictures with Disney characters. A family caricature drawing that showed the 4 of them, with no space where I should have been. Each new post felt like another knife in my heart. I scrolled back through our text messages from the past few weeks, looking for clues I might have missed. There was my mother asking what my work schedule looked like in July, which I now realized was her making sure I wouldn't randomly take time off. My father mentioning he was getting the car serviced, probably for the drive to the airport. Jake being unusually busy and unavailable for our usual coffee meetups. They had all been in on it. Every single one of them had looked me in the eye and lied. As evening fell, I was still on my couch, still in my work clothes, still staring at my phone in disbelief. The theme park was closed now, so the photos had stopped, but the damage was done. My family had chosen to exclude me from our most important tradition, and I had no idea why. A text finally came through from Jake. "Alex, please don't hate me. I wanted to tell you, but Mom and Dad said I couldn't. They said you'd understand eventually." Understand? How could I possibly understand being deliberately left out and lied to? What could I have done to deserve this? I texted back, "How could you do this to me? We're supposed to be family." His response came quickly. "It's complicated. There are things you don't know. Just wait until we get back, and everything will make sense. Things I don't know? What could possibly justify this level of deception? As I sat there in my dark apartment, surrounded by photos of happier times with my family, I realized that everything I thought I knew about them might be a lie. The vacation betrayal was just the beginning. Something much bigger was happening, and I was going to find out what it was, whether they wanted me to or not. The next morning, I woke up on my couch, still in yesterday's clothes, my phone dead in my hand. After charging it, I saw dozens of messages from friends who'd seen the Facebook posts and were confused about why I wasn't in any of the photos. I ignored them all. I had more pressing matters to investigate. I drove to my parents' house in a fog of determination and dread. Their car wasn't in the driveway, of course, but I had a key from when I used to house sit. As I pulled up, their neighbor, Mrs. Chin, was watering her roses over the fence. "Alexandra." "What a surprise," she called out, setting down her watering can. "I thought you were in Florida with your family. Your mother asked me to water her plants while you were all gone." My stomach churned. "Actually, I had to stay behind for work," I lied, forcing a smile. "When did they leave?" Mrs. Chin thought for a moment. "Let's see, it was Thursday morning. Your father was loading the car at 6 a.m. I remember, because my Bentley was barking at all the commotion." She paused, studying my face. "Your mother seemed nervous about something. She made me promise twice to water the plants, like she was distracted." "Did she say anything else?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just that they'd been planning this trip for 2 months and wanted everything to be perfect. She mentioned something about it being a special celebration, but didn't say what for." Mrs. Chin picked up her watering can again. "Is everything all right, dear?" 2 months. They'd been planning this for 2 months while looking me in the eye and pretending everything was normal. "Everything's fine," I said, though the words tasted bitter. "Thanks, Mrs. Chin." Inside my childhood home, everything looked normal at first glance. But as I walked through the familiar rooms, small things felt off. The family photo from last Christmas that usually sat on the mantel was gone. The refrigerator, typically covered in pictures and magnets from our travels, had been cleared except for a few generic items. I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom, expecting to find it as I'd left it when I moved out 3 years ago. Instead, I opened the door to find it transformed into a storage room. Boxes were stacked along the walls, old furniture crammed into corners. My bed was gone, replaced by my father's exercise equipment that he never used. But it wasn't just that they'd repurposed the room. All traces of me had been erased. The wall where my high school diplomas and college degree had hung was bare. The shelf that held my childhood books and trophies was empty. Even the paint had been changed from the soft lavender I'd chosen at 13 to a stark white. Fighting back tears, I started going through the boxes, looking for my belongings. Most contained holiday decorations and old tax documents, but in one corner, I found a box simply labeled A. Inside were all my photos, awards, and mementos, carelessly thrown together like garbage waiting to be disposed of. Anger began to replace my hurt. This wasn't just about a vacation. This was systematic erasure. I headed to my father's home office, a room he usually kept locked. But I knew where he hid the spare key, taped under the desk drawer in the hallway. The office was meticulously organized, as always. File cabinets lined one wall, each drawer carefully labeled. I started with the drawer marked Financial. Inside, I found folders for investments, taxes, and insurance. But pushed to the back was an unmarked folder that made my hands tremble as I opened it. Inside were documents from my grandparents' estate. My paternal grandparents, who had passed away 5 years ago, had left detailed instructions for their assets to be divided equally among their 3 grandchildren. I remembered the reading of the will, how my parents had handled everything as executors, assuring us kids that everything would be distributed fairly when we were ready. But these documents told a different story. Jake had received his full inheritance of $150,000 on his 25th birthday. Emma had gotten hers just 6 months ago when she turned 23. According to the papers, mine should have been distributed when I turned 25, 2 years ago. My hands shook as I found bank statements showing regular withdrawals from an account in my name that I'd never known existed. The current balance was $12,000. Where had the rest gone? I photographed everything with my phone, then moved to another file labeled Correspondence. Inside were printed emails between my parents, dating back 3 years. My heart pounded as I read them. From my mother, Robert, she's asking too many questions about the inheritance. What if she finds out? From my father, we stick to the plan. She's too independent anyway. Once she realizes she needs us, she'll fall in line like Jake did. From my mother, but what we're doing isn't right. She's our daughter. From my father, she's ungrateful. Remember how she questioned our investment advice? How she insisted on moving out instead of staying home like we asked. She thinks she knows better than us. This will teach her humility. I felt sick. There were more emails discussing the Alexandra problem, as they called it. Apparently, my sin was being too independent, too questioning, too successful on my own. They'd wanted me to struggle, to need them, to be dependent like Jake, who still called my father for permission before making major decisions. Another folder revealed something even worse. There were letters addressed to me that I'd never received. A job offer from a company in Seattle that would have doubled my salary. An acceptance letter to a graduate program I'd applied to but thought I'd been rejected from. They'd intercepted my mail and responded on my behalf, declining opportunities that would have taken me away from their control. The most recent email was from 2 weeks ago. My mother had written, "The vacation will be the final test. If she accepts being excluded without a fight, we know we've broken her spirit enough. If not, we move to phase 2. Phase 2? What were they planning next? In the bottom drawer, I found legal documents that made my blood run cold. Power of attorney forms with my signature, except I'd never signed them. Bank accounts opened in my name that I knew nothing about. Credit card statements showing thousands in debt I hadn't incurred. They weren't just stealing my inheritance. They were committing identity theft. I heard a car in the driveway and my heart raced. But it was just a delivery truck turning around. I realized I needed more time to document everything. I took photos of every incriminating document, every email, every forged signature. As I was replacing the files, I knocked over a small box that had been hidden behind them. Inside were photos I'd never seen before. Pictures of my parents with Jake and Emma at various events over the past 2 years. Restaurant celebrations, weekend trips, family gatherings I'd never been invited to. They hadn't just excluded me from this vacation. They'd been excluding me from family life for years, and I'd been too trusting to notice. The final blow came in the form of a printed message from my Aunt Linda to my mother. "Grace, I understand why you're doing what you're doing with Alexandra, but are you sure this is the only way?" She seemed so hurt when we didn't invite her to Easter dinner. They'd been turning the extended family against me too, painting me as difficult and ungrateful to justify their actions. I carefully returned everything to its place and locked the office. As I left the house, I felt like a stranger walking through a museum of my former life. Every family photo on the wall now seemed like a lie. Every memory tainted by the knowledge of their deception. Back in my car, I sat in the driveway, overwhelmed by what I discovered. My phone buzzed with another Facebook notification. Emma had posted a video of the fireworks at Magic Kingdom with the caption, "Perfect end to a perfect day with the fam." The fam. As if I wasn't part of it anymore. Maybe, in their minds, I never really was. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with the implications of what I'd found. This wasn't just about money or control. This was about punishment. They were punishing me for being independent, for questioning them, for refusing to be the daughter they wanted me to be. But they'd underestimated me. They thought excluding me from a vacation would break me, make me desperate for their approval. Instead, they'd given me the push I needed to uncover years of lies and theft. I spent the rest of the day organizing the evidence, backing up photos to multiple cloud services, and researching lawyers who specialized in family fraud. By evening, I had a plan. They wanted to test me. They were about to learn that the daughter they'd raised to be strong and independent wasn't going to go down without a fight. A text from my mother finally came through. "Sweetie, I hope you're not upset about the photos. We can explain everything. Love you. I stared at the message, anger burning in my chest. Love? Is that what they called systematically destroying my life? I didn't respond. Let them enjoy the rest of their vacation. They had no idea what was waiting for them when they got home. 3 days later, I watched from my apartment window as my parents' car pulled into their driveway. They were home from their magical vacation, back to face the reality of what they'd done. I'd spent those 3 days preparing, consulting with a lawyer, and gathering more evidence. I waited 2 hours, letting them settle in, before driving over. When my mother opened the door, her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, guilt, and then a forced smile. Alexandra. Sweetheart, come in. How was your week? How was my week? I discovered that my parents were criminals who'd stolen from me and sabotaged my life. But sure, let's make small talk. We need to talk, I said, walking past her into the living room where my father was pretending to read a newspaper. Hey, princess, he said without looking up, using a nickname that now made my skin crawl. How's everything? I pulled out the folder I'd prepared, thick with printed evidence, and dropped it on the coffee table with a satisfying thud. Everything's just great, Dad. I especially enjoyed finding out about the trust fund you stole from me. The newspaper lowered slowly. My father's face had gone pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? I opened the folder, spreading out the bank statements. Then explain why Jake and Emma got their inheritances, but mine somehow disappeared into your accounts. My mother sank onto the couch, her hand over her mouth. Alexandra, you don't understand. You're right, I don't understand. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I don't understand how my parents could steal from me, forge my signature, intercept my mail, and systematically try to destroy my life. At that moment, Jake walked in from the kitchen, stopping short when he saw the scene. Behind him, Emma peered around his shoulder. They'd clearly been listening. You two knew about this? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Jake couldn't meet my eyes. Alex, it's not that simple. Did you know they stole my inheritance? Yes or no? He shifted uncomfortably. I found out last year. They said if I told you, they'd demand I pay back the money they gave me for my debts. Your gambling debts, I corrected, remembering what I'd read in the emails. They used my money to pay off your gambling debts. Emma started crying. I didn't know about the money, I swear. They just told me you were being difficult and needed to learn a lesson. They said the vacation thing was to teach you humility. Humility. I laughed bitterly. Is that what we're calling theft and fraud now? My father stood up, his face red. Now you listen here, young lady. Everything we did was for your own good. You were getting too big for your britches, thinking you were better than this family. Better than criminals? Yeah, I guess I did think that. My mother tried to interject. Robert, please. Alexandra, honey, we only wanted what was best for you. You were pulling away from us, making all these plans to leave. You mean the job in Seattle? The grad school program. I pulled out those letters. The opportunities you sabotaged by intercepting my mail? The room fell silent. Jake's face had gone white. They did what? Even Emma looked shocked. Mom, is that true? My mother's tears were flowing freely now. She was going to leave us. Move across the country. We'd never see her. So you decided to steal from me and ruin my future instead? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's your idea of keeping family together? My father's anger returned. We didn't steal anything. That money was in trust, and as trustees, we had the right to manage it as we saw fit. For my benefit, not yours. I shot back. And certainly not to pay off Jake's gambling debts. Jake flinched. Alex, I didn't know the money came from you, I swear. They told me it was from their savings. And you just believed them? Even after you found out the truth, you kept quiet to save your own skin. They're our parents, he exploded. What was I supposed to do? Have a backbone? Have some integrity? Tell the truth. I turned to Emma. And you? What's your excuse? She was sobbing now. They said you thought you were too good for us. That you judged us, looked down on us. They showed me the emails where you criticized their investment advice, said you were ungrateful. I was trying to protect them from an obvious scam. But apparently, the only scam I should have been worried about was the one they were running on me. My Aunt Linda and Uncle Stephen chose that moment to arrive, having been called by my parents. "What's all this shouting about?" Aunt Linda asked, looking concerned. "Your sister has been stealing from me," I told her flatly. "Want to see the evidence?" My mother wailed. "Linda, she's having some kind of breakdown. She broke into our house while we were gone, went through our private papers." "You mean the private papers that prove you committed fraud?" I countered. My cousin Brittany slipped in behind her parents, pulling out her phone. I saw her hit record and felt a small surge of gratitude. At least someone was going to witness this honestly. My father pointed at me. "You had no right to go through our things. That's breaking and entering." "I used the key you gave me," I reminded him. "And I had every right to look for information about my stolen inheritance." "Would you prefer I'd gone straight to the police?" That shut him up quickly. Uncle Stephen looked between us, confused. "Can someone explain what's happening here?" I picked up the bank statements. My grandparents left equal inheritances to all 3 grandchildren. Jake and Emma got theirs. Mine was stolen and used to pay Jake's gambling debts and fund their lifestyle. They also intercepted my mail, forged my signature on legal documents, and opened credit accounts in my name. "That's a lie," my mother shrieked. "We would never. Linda, you know us." I pulled out my phone. "I have photos of everything, including the emails where you discuss the Alexandra problem and your plans to break my spirit." Aunt Linda took the phone, scrolling through the evidence. Her face grew more horrified with each swipe. "Grace. Robert. Is this real?" "She's twisting everything," my father insisted. "We were trying to help her. She's always been so stubborn, so independent. We wanted her to understand the value of family." "By stealing from her?" Uncle Stephen asked, reading over his wife's shoulder. "This email says you used her inheritance for a vacation home rental last year." I hadn't even found that one. The betrayals just kept coming. "We were going to pay it back," my mother cried. "Once she learned her lesson, we were going to give her the money." "What lesson?" I demanded. "That I can't trust my own parents?" "Because congratulations, I learned that one really well." Jake suddenly spoke up. "Wait, the vacation home in Asheville? You told me Grandma left you that money separately." My parents exchanged guilty looks. Apparently, they'd been lying to all of us. Emma wiped her eyes. "What about my inheritance? Is it really mine, or did you steal from me too?" "Of course it's yours, sweetheart," my mother said quickly. "We would never." "Never what?" "Never do to her what you did to me." I interrupted. "Check your accounts, Emma. Make sure." Panic flashed across my parents' faces. Emma pulled out her phone, logging into her banking app. After a moment, she looked up. "There have been withdrawals I didn't make. Small ones, but—" "Mom?" The room exploded. Jake was yelling about being lied to. Emma was crying harder. Aunt Linda was lecturing my parents about family values. Uncle Stephen was on his phone with someone, maybe a lawyer. Brittany kept recording, occasionally asking clarifying questions like a junior reporter. Through it all, my parents tried to maintain their innocence, painting themselves as victims of their ungrateful children. My father kept insisting they had rights as trustees. My mother wailed about how much she'd sacrificed for us. Finally, I'd had enough. "I'm filing a police report," I announced, cutting through the chaos. "For identity theft, fraud, and embezzlement. I've already spoken to a lawyer." The room went silent. "You wouldn't dare," my father said, but his voice shook. "Watch me," I replied. "You wanted to teach me a lesson? Here's one for you. Actions have consequences. And stealing from your children has big ones." My mother lunged at me, trying to grab the folder of evidence. "You can't do this. We're your parents. We gave you life." I stepped back, holding the folder out of reach. "And then you tried to ruin it. Family doesn't do this to each other," she screamed. "You're right," I said coldly. "Family doesn't. Which is why I'm done pretending you're mine." I turned to leave, but Jake stopped me. "Alex, wait. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have told you." I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished by his complicity. "I know you are, Jake." But sorry doesn't give me back 2 years of stolen opportunities. Sorry doesn't undo the lies. What can I do? He asked desperately. How can I make this right? Testify, I said simply. When this goes to court, tell the truth. All of it. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I will. I promise. Emma joined us. Me too. I'll tell them everything I know. Alexandra, I'm so sorry. I should have questioned things more. I should have stood up for you. I softened slightly. They were victims too, in their own way. I know. Just be honest from now on. That's all I ask. As I headed for the door, my father called out one last time. If you do this, you're out of the will. You'll get nothing from us. I turned back with a bitter smile. Dad, you already made sure I got nothing from you. At least now it'll be official. I left them there in their expensive house, surrounded by their lies and broken family. As I drove away, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. The family I thought I had was gone, but maybe it had never really existed. At least now I knew the truth. And the truth, painful as it was, had set me free. Within 24 hours of leaving my parents' house, I became the villain in their carefully crafted narrative. I woke up to 47 Facebook notifications, 15 missed calls, and a text from my boss asking me to call her immediately. My mother had posted a long, dramatic message on Facebook that began, "It is with a heavy heart that I share our daughter Alexandra is experiencing a mental health crisis. She has made terrible accusations against our family, and we are praying for her recovery." The comments were a mix of sympathy for my parents and shock about my supposed breakdown. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly messaging me, asking if I needed help, offering numbers for therapists, suggesting meditation retreats. My high school friends were confused. My college roommate called 3 times. I posted my own response, attaching some of the evidence. I am not having a mental health crisis. I discovered my parents stole my inheritance and committed identity theft. I have proof, which I've shared with the authorities. I'm sorry this family matter has become public, but I won't be silenced by gaslighting. The digital war had begun. My phone rang. It was my boss, Sandra. Alexandra, I just received a very concerning call from someone claiming to be your father. He says you're having paranoid delusions and may be dangerous to yourself and others. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. Sandra, I need to explain what's really happening. Can I come in and show you some documents? Please do. I told him I couldn't discuss employee matters, but he was very insistent. He mentioned something about having you hospitalized. My blood ran cold. Phase 2. This was their phase 2. I rushed to the office, bringing copies of all my evidence. Sandra reviewed everything carefully, her expression growing more shocked with each document. This is Alexandra, this is serious criminal activity. I know. I've already filed a police report and hired a lawyer. They're trying to discredit me before the investigation gets serious. Well, they won't succeed here, she said firmly. I've known you for 3 years. You're one of our most stable, reliable employees. Do you need any time off to deal with this? Maybe later, I said, grateful for her support. Right now, I need the normalcy of work. But normalcy was impossible. Throughout the day, I received messages from extended family members, each more hostile than the last. My father's brother called me ungrateful. My mother's sister accused me of trying to destroy the family. Cousins I'd grown up with blocked me on social media. Then Jake's girlfriend Megan called. Alex, I need to tell you something. Jake's parents called him last night after you left. They threatened to demand immediate repayment of everything they'd given him if he testified against them. They said they'd ruin his credit, get him fired, even go after me. He's terrified. Are you recording this call? I asked. Yes. My dad's a lawyer. He said to document everything. Good. Keep recording. What else did they say? They want Jake to sign an affidavit saying you've been unstable for years. That you've made threats before. They even want him to say he saw you forge documents. Alex, none of that is true, and Jake knows it, but he's so scared. Is he going to do it? There was a pause. I don't know. I've never seen him like this. 20 years of manipulation doesn't just disappear overnight. But I'm working on him. I told him if he lies about you, we're done. That evening, I found a notice on my door. My parents were trying to get an involuntary psychiatric hold placed on me, claiming I was a danger to myself and others. The paperwork was filled with lies about past behavior, claims of violence, and threats I'd never made. I immediately called my lawyer, Janet Morrison, who'd come highly recommended for family fraud cases. They're trying to establish a pattern of mental illness to discredit your testimony, she explained. It's a common tactic in these cases. Don't worry, I'll file an emergency motion to block it. Their claims are obviously fabricated. But the damage to my reputation had begun. My parents had called my workplace again, this time reaching other departments. They'd contacted my landlord, warning him about my dangerous delusions. They'd even reached out to my ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, trying to get him to support their claims of instability. Thankfully, most people saw through it. My ex, Thomas, actually called to warn me. Your mom just offered me $5,000 to say you were unstable when we dated. I told her to pound sand, but you should know they're getting desperate. The next blow came from an unexpected source. My grandmother Helen, my mother's mother, called me. At 85, she was sharp as ever, despite my parents often claiming she was senile. Alexandra, dear, I've been watching this unfold on that Facebook thing, and I have something to tell you, she said, her voice steady. This isn't the first time your parents have done something like this. What do you mean, Grandma? 30 years ago, they did something similar to your father's younger sister, Patricia. She was written out of the family after questioning some financial decisions. They painted her as unstable, a drug addict, all sorts of terrible things. She wasn't any of those things. She was just inconvenient. My Aunt Patricia. I'd been told she died in a car accident when I was a baby. Grandma, are you saying Aunt Patricia is alive? Last I heard, she was living in Oregon. Happy, successful, and far away from your parents. I kept in touch secretly for years, but your parents found out and threatened to put me in a home if I didn't stop. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This was a pattern, a family tradition of disposing of inconvenient members. I've been documenting everything, Grandma Helen continued. Ever since they started managing your trust funds, I've kept records. I knew something like this would happen eventually. I have copies of the original will, proof that your parents have been mismanaging funds, even evidence of them taking money from me. Grandma, would you be willing to testify? Honey, I've been waiting 20 years for someone to ask me that question. You come by tomorrow, and I'll give you everything I have. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed constantly with messages, some supportive, others hostile. I'd had to block dozens of numbers. My social media had become a battlefield, with family members taking sides and airing decades of dirty laundry. Then Emma called, sobbing. Alex, they're doing it to me now too. Because I said I'd testify for you. They froze my accounts. They're saying I'm not mature enough to handle my inheritance. They want to put it back in trust with them as trustees. Document everything, I told her. Record every conversation. Save every text. We'll fight this together. I'm scared, she admitted. What if they win? What if everyone believes them? They won't, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The truth is on our side. But as I hung up, I wondered if the truth would be enough. My parents had money, connections, and decades of practice in manipulation. They'd already turned half the family against me and were working on destroying my credibility with everyone else. The next morning brought a new development. A private investigator showed up at my door, hired by my grandmother. His name was William Chin, a soft-spoken man in his 60s who'd specialized in financial fraud for 30 years. Your grandmother hired me 6 months ago, he explained, showing me his credentials. She suspected something was wrong when your parents suddenly had money for renovations despite claiming poverty. I've been investigating quietly. What did you find? He pulled out a thick file. Your parents have been stealing from multiple family members for over 15 years. Not just you and your siblings, but cousins, elderly relatives, even their own parents. They've created a complex web of accounts and transfers to hide it, but the pattern is clear. The scope of it took my breath away. How much in total? Conservative estimate? About $2 million over 15 years. They're not just thieves, Miss Miller. They're serial financial predators who've been using family trust and emotional manipulation to fund a lifestyle they couldn't otherwise afford. He showed me evidence of forged signatures on loan documents, fake investment accounts, and elderly relatives who'd been convinced to sign over power of attorney, only to have their accounts drained. This is enough to put them in prison, I breathed. If we can prove it all in court, yes. But they're already working to destroy evidence. I've heard they're planning to claim all these documents are forgeries you created during your mental breakdown. That's why your grandmother wanted me to give you this now, before they can spin it. As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Janet, my lawyer. Alexandra, I just got off the phone with the prosecutor's office. They're taking your case seriously, but your parents have hired Bernard Fitzgerald. My heart sank. Fitzgerald was known for getting wealthy criminals off on technicalities. He was expensive, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. They're scared, Janet continued. Hiring him means they know they're in real trouble. But it also means this is going to get uglier before it gets better. Are you prepared for that? I looked at the evidence spread across my coffee table. Photos of forged documents. Bank statements showing theft. Emails discussing their crimes. My entire family's dirty secrets laid bare. I'm prepared, I said. Let them come. But even as I said it, I knew the war had only just begun. My parents had shown they were willing to destroy their own children to protect themselves. The question was, how far would they go, and who else would they take down with them?